Fox News has now confirmed that the United States has launched a strike in the south of Syria. It's my understanding that this was a sort of deconfliction zone, a safe space area, and that the United States forces were on the ground. Syrian forces there as well had entered this sort of safe space area, and United States forces on the ground wanted them to leave. Warning shots fired. They did not leave. And as the story goes to us at this moment, 1:34 p.m. Eastern Time in New York, as the story goes to us, airstrikes were then called in, and coalition forces dropped ordnance of some sort on this deconfliction zone. This is not a change in policy toward the Syrian civil war, which has left hundreds of thousands dead, a murderous dictator still in charge, and after more than 7 years of civil war, hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people dead, a refugee crisis beyond imagination, and a very tenuous set of circumstances. As the Russians and the Iranians back the Syrian regime, the United States backs rebels who are fighting against it. Now where are we? Let's get straight to Jennifer Griffin, our national security correspondent, live for us at the Pentagon, who broke this news for us. Jennifer, what have you learned?
Well, Shepard, senior U.S. defense officials that I've spoken to tell me, as you've mentioned, that there is no change in policy. But what is unusual about this airstrike is it is the first time that the U.S. has called in an airstrike against pro-Assad regime forces. There was an accidental targeting of those pro-Syrian, pro-regime forces in Deir ez-Zor not too long ago. And then, of course, there was that Tomahawk missile strike on Shayrat Air Base in the wake of the chemical weapons attack. But it is unusual, and it certainly was not something that was authorized under the rules of engagement during the last administration, during the Obama administration. The rules of engagement at that time were extremely tight. We have been hearing about a loosening of those rules of engagement and sending some of the authority for those airstrikes back down into the field to local commanders, and that is really what we are seeing today. We don't have all the details, but we can confirm that U.S. warplanes saw pro-Assad regime forces moving into an area known as a deconfliction zone around the town of At-Tanaf. That's spelled A-T-T-N-A-F, and it's on the border with Iraq. It's in eastern Syria. What is notable right now is that it is clear that the U.S. is concerned that those regime forces are making moves on areas where the U.S. has likely trained forces that are gearing up for a very big fight against the ISIS capital, Raqqa. We have been reporting for weeks now that they are on the verge of beginning the operation to retake Raqqa. The U.S.-backed forces, many of them, they're known as the Syrian Defense Forces. They are trained by the U.S. They're armed by the U.S. They include some Kurdish factions, Syrian Kurdish factions, as well as Arab factions. They have essentially circled Raqqa, the ISIS de facto capital, and they have made gains. They've taken the dam on the outside of Raqqa called Tabqa in recent days. And so that is an operation that we expect to begin at any time. And we also expect to hear from the Defense Secretary, Jim Mattis, and his chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Joe Dunford, General Joe Dunford, tomorrow here in the Pentagon press briefing room. And it's only the second press conference that Defense Secretary Mattis has held since he has taken up his job here at the Pentagon, and we were expecting to hear about the strategy to fight ISIS and also the way ahead in Afghanistan. So that press conference was slated for tomorrow, and certainly all eyes are on NATO and the NATO coalition as President Trump begins his journey tomorrow to the Middle East and then onward to meet with NATO allies in Rome.